Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Monday, February 26, 2018, 8 o'clock a.m., actually 8:02 because we got a little bit of a late start. But this is your first daily dose of happy for the day, and I have to say, Tom, I'm really glad that we're starting the day because as I just told you off the call, I was working on a very difficult situation, helping somebody who was in that very difficult situation. I completely lost track of time, and it's so much better to be focusing on this than on that. So.
There you go. Immediate switch to
Immediate switch. I tell you, boy, fast, really fast.
Well, good. I'm glad you could make the transition.
So I hope you had a great weekend. I hope things have been good.
Yeah, things have been good. It's been a lot of revelation this weekend, I would say. It's been good. That's why they ended up with this topic. Nothing serious
is going on here. I laughed when I saw that topic this morning, especially in light of what's been going on with this person I was trying to help. I thought, oh, wow, that is just perfect. I don't know how you do it, Tom. You always come up with the perfect topic.
Well, I channeled it, you know.
That's what it was.
Maybe I'm plugging in a little bit to that world of the divine or whatever you call it, the infinite realm of vibration.
I tell you, oh my goodness. I have to say, this has been an interesting weekend that we had for me because, among other things, you remember Lucy, right? The person who was our first caller, that first Tuesday night show that we did? Sure. We met her yesterday. We met her and her partner, and it was wonderful. We had such a great conversation with them. We met her daughter. And we were there for about 2.5 hours talking with them. It was such an extensive conversation. We talked about LOA. We talked about the Sudbury Model School where the kids have control of their lives. I mean, and it just got better and better and better and better and better.
Wow, that's so good.
Oh, it was really good. So
really fun to have friends like that, huh?
Yeah. We like the number of friends we're getting this way now. We have probably like 8 good friends that we found through trying to reach out through the law of attraction, all of whom are into LOA, all of whom are really, really nice people, all of whom are very positive people. And I'm thinking, whoa, why did I do this before?
Yeah. I need to do more of that myself. I know a number of people, but I don't have enough regular involvement with them. That's why I need to get more of that going.
Oh, yeah. This is like reinforcing for me just how important it is to do. And also, the other thing that happened is I had a revelation. And when I tell you what the revelation is, you're going to say, well, of course, that's obvious. But it wasn't obvious to me. Because I've been kind of struggling with why it is that doubt keeps cropping up in my life. You know, I've made a lot of good changes, and those changes have certainly been for the better. They've produced much better results. But the doubt kept creeping up, and I couldn't understand why. And I finally realized why it creeps up. It's because doubt is a kind of belief. And like any other belief, when you keep focusing on it, it keeps growing bigger and bigger. It gets stronger and stronger. So every time I focus on that doubt, I'm the one who's building it up. That seems so obvious to say it, but I didn't realize that. For whatever reason, I hadn't made the connection that doubt is a kind of belief and that every time I look at it, I'm just building it up. I knew that it wasn't good to look at doubt, but somehow I had never said to myself, every time I look at doubt, I'm building it up. I don't know why, but I never did that.
Yeah. That sounds like the crux of what this podcast is about. That's really great.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I'm coming to realize, too.
Oh, both of us. Okay.
I think that's why it's an interesting discussion because it really is an area that I have like blind spots in, I think. You know, like you're saying, you know, why would we do that? Why would we keep building up something that sabotages our happiness? And yet it's such a habit, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a habit, and it's one that now that I have a better understanding of where it's coming from and why it keeps cropping up, it's a habit I'm determined to break. Because I certainly don't want to attract doubt into my life now that I know that it builds up. That's the part how do I miss that? But I did. Doubt actually accumulates. It accumulates over time. It's not like, okay, I had a little doubt and then I put it aside and now it's gone. I had a little doubt and now my doubt level has increased. It doesn't drop back down. It just stays where it is. Until I just do something to dispose of it, it just stays there. It's in that vortex, right? The doubt is there.
Yeah. It's sort of like a a vibration that's been established, and until you interrupt that pattern.
Yes.
That's what the channeling that I did about this podcast got me into, that realization that I do to myself, and that in the end of the channeling, I say to myself, or my channeling says, it's time for a pattern interrupt. You've got a well-worn pattern going on here.
I like that. A pattern interrupt. That's good.
Yeah. Well, that's what they call it in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, they do things that cause you to, touch you at a certain point in the conversation, right when you create an anchor for the new way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful modality. You learn how to lock into your subconscious, you might say, and your unconscious, this new pattern, and you expand and explode and explore the old pattern in ways that are not traditional. In other words, instead of thinking about the old pattern in the way you've always thought about it, you might say, for example, run a movie backwards in your head of the whole thing, or turn the entire thing into black and white and then shrink it down to the size of an infinitesimal dot and then expand it into the size of the whole universe. Or, you do things that just cause the way that you think about something to just get completely altered. And there's ways that can be locked into your body then to where you won't as likely. It's like a form of hypnosis almost. It's
okay.
It's using the subconscious, unconscious processes to interrupt the old traditional, well-worn grooves. Like what's that saying that neurons that fire together wire together, and if we wire together these neurons our whole life to think certain ways, and so our thoughts just follow these patterns automatically. And if those patterns are sabotaging our life, they're not serving us, then it's time for a pattern interrupt. It's time for a new way of thinking. Well, how do we get into those new ways of thinking?
Yeah.
And that's really what this whole podcast is about. Like how do we, that's what the law of attraction's about,
Well, as I discovered when I discovered this little thing about how doubts are a form of belief, when I realized that consciously, that conscious awareness is the first step, isn't it? It's the first step toward how do you change it? How do you change it to something else? First, you have to be aware of it. If you aren't aware of it, you can't change it.
Yeah, because it can be going on a really subtle level, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, because it didn't even feel like I was doing it. I had no conscious awareness that, I am focusing on doubt again. That's not the way I thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me, it's more than just doubt. I mean, it is doubt, of course, but it is almost like an obsession for me with accomplishment and with striving and struggling in order to achieve some kind of a sense in this reality of that I'm creating the life that I want to have. And it's all that efforting to, it shows up in the form of affirmations, visualizations, reading books, like preparing for, my career, choosing a certain career. I mean, so many things are about me putting into place all the right ingredients so that at some point I'll be able to say, I've arrived. I now have the life that I've always wanted to have. And so now the right amount of money's there, the right friends are there, the right conditions are there in every way, the right partner, the right health situation. And now I can say, I can really begin to live freely from this point of accomplishment. I've arrived.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And realizing that Abraham was saying you can't have a foot in the two worlds. There is the world of vibration, and then there's that other world of feeling like, I guess it's a feeling like it's on my shoulders, the feeling like it's up to me to make my life what it is. And yes, it is. There is such a thing as accomplishment, and there is good feelings that come from, knocking things off my list of things to do or arriving at certain destinations. But the reality that they're saying and that I'm getting all weekend long from the things that I did this weekend, they're all saying one thing to me, and that the universe exists in the opposite way. It's vibration first. It's this feeling first. It's this state of being. You know, like when you go into meditation and you get to this place where you're vibrating with such a good feeling and such a knowing, and you're in a state of being. And then you start seeing how the universe is created.
Yes.
You know, it comes from the opposite direction. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's a big subject that nothing serious is going on here. You know? Because when I channeled this, I said, what should I talk about? And my channeling said, you should talk about infinity. And I was like, oh no, not again. I'm always talking about being an infinite being. And I just said to myself, I can't imagine that could be the topic. That's just me responding to my old well-worn pattern of that word infinity just coming up all the time. But then when I did a 3-page channeling on it, I realized that it's all about this topic of not really believing that I'm an infinite being. I don't really believe or act as if I come from the realm of the infinite. Instead, come from the realm of the finite, and I'm struggling to somehow realize my infinite nature. And somehow the whole thing has to get reversed. You know?
Oh, yes.
There has to be an experience of my infinite nature that comes in meditation and comes in at some huge level of acceptance. And then from that, you see the blossoming of everything. You know, it's almost like,
It's got to also be more than meditation, doesn't it? It has to be about what we choose to think about in our daily lives outside of meditation.
It's everything. But I guess the point I'm making is that everything on this level of what we see and taste and touch and feel it's a level of manifestation that has a vibrational root. It has a vibrational source. And we haven't been taught, and the whole world, the way humans have set up our society with science and the way we do things, we're looking at trying to find our happiness through what we're moving around in this external world, in a sense. Okay. I mean, it's sort of like if you go to meditation, you can sit there, and if you go deep enough, you realize that you're sitting in the source. You feel like you're at the source of where all of this comes from, you know, and then you can begin to understand it in a way that we can never understand it from moving around words and concepts and ideas about things. It's like thinking can never get us to the heart, in a sense. It's sort of like, how do you think with your heart instead of your head, where you're not using reason to arrive at all the distinctions and understandings that you want to have in your life. You're arriving there from an experience, an experiential place of knowing yourself from your heart, from the inside out. Well, anyway, that's why I say it's a big topic.
Well, it is a big topic, no doubt about that. And like you say, the fact that we are infinite beings, that alone's a big topic. Just by being an infinite being, that makes an infinite number of topics. I mean, there's just one leads to the other, regardless of how you look at that. The fact is, it's just going to be no end to the number of things you can talk about in regard to that, because of the infinity nature of being. And it also occurred to me, a belief is a thought that we think over and over again. So if what we need to do is to increase our appreciation of the infinite nature of our beings, it just means we need to think about that some more. And we need to think about it some more, and then some more, and then some more. Yeah, in a way it's true. You just get more and more familiar with the fact that that's the way the universe works. I've been studying this guy named William Buehler, who he does a whole bunch Buhlman, Buhlman, Buhlman,
M-A-N, William Buhlman. And he wrote a book called Adventures Beyond the Body. And he does, ever since he was in college, and he's about my age, I think I mentioned this on another podcast, he's been doing all these adventures outside of his body where he goes on journeys outside of his body when he's in this altered state that he's trained himself to go into. And he said there's literally thousands and thousands of people who do this around the world. And in that process, he's come to realize that everything that we're seeing and experiencing here is like a thin crust on the shell of a reality that's so deep that it's sort of like comparing what's on the surface of the earth to what's, if you go deeper and deeper into the earth, that it's so, there's such a huge amount that the crust is really, really thin. And he said, so the reality that we spend a lot of our time focusing on, we've been trained to focus on, is this outer reality, but it's all the underpinnings of the whole thing are literally an infinite universe that extends within us. It extends within us. And so it's not really an external universe. So even the galaxies and the nebula and everything that are out there in space that go on forever, this seemingly infinite external universe is all generated by consciousness that comes from within us. And that's why the journey that so many religions and, the Buddha and Taoism and Hinduism and all these journeys through meditation are these journeys into this inner realm, which is really where it's all coming from. The whole universe is coming from within us, and it's our consciousness. And so there are ways to make this journey into knowing ourselves that are really different than using thought. And thought is a marvelous thing, but it's almost like one of the senses. In ancient Egypt, they listed the senses, and thought was one of the senses. They listed it right there along with sight and hearing and taste and touch, and thinking was one of the senses. And I'm just sort of trying to get my mind around this. I watched a 2-hour movie that I really recommend for you and anybody that wants to have their mind blown. And it's a documentary called Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds. And it must have been made kind of recently because it's got people using iPads and iPhones and everything. That doesn't mean it's that recent, but it's really, really well done. I mean, I have never seen a documentary that is so beautiful in the terms of the photography. It's got fractals in it, like lots and lots of fractals. And I don't know where the guy who made it got these amazing, this amazing footage, these amazing videos. But you know what a fractal is?
I do, yeah, but explain it for the audience because many people may not.
Well, I can't explain it, but a fractal was created by, was understood by this famous mathematician, in the 60s or something like that, where he realized, you go ahead and explain it. Maybe you have a better grasp of it.
Yeah, well, you're on the right track there. Fractals are literally mathematical computations that you repeat over and over again. And when you produce these repeated computations and represent them in some sort of a graphical form, like a photograph or a drawing or something like that, you end up with these images that are just astonishing. I mean, they just evolve into, you would think it would just turn like into a spirograph and then just be done, but it doesn't do that. It turns into this endlessly growing image that just turns into an image that gets bigger and bigger. And what's really remarkable about them is that you find the pieces of the fractal image within the fractal image. And we see this actually in nature. For instance, you can see fractals in trees. If you look at like an oak tree, you know an oak tree has a certain shape, right? You have the trunk, you've got the shape of the roundish ball of the tree and so forth. And then if you look at the way like the branches of the tree are cut, it's not like a perfect line, right, going around the outer edge of the tree up toward the top. It's like broken up. If you look at the way that pattern looks and then compare it to the oak leaf, you find it's the same pattern. It has the same shape. That kind of thing shows up over and over throughout nature. And this guy's theorem is that is because of the fractal nature of nature, so to speak.
Yeah. So this movie sort of is 2 hours or hour and a half of looking at maybe it's 2 hours. Yeah, of looking at the world as a giant, the universe as a giant expression of fractal beauty and fractal wisdom, and sort of how everything is unfolding constantly in this infinite beauty that we are all a part of, and that it all is coming from within us in our consciousness, and that when you meditate and you go inside, you begin to enter that world. And that's the world of vibration. This guy who does, William Buhlman, who does all this out-of-body travel, he said that as you go into the different layers of reality that exist beyond the physical, you have universe upon universe upon universe that begin to reveal themselves to you. And the deeper you go on that journey, the more you start to realize where everything originates. And he said we're only at the very beginning in science to begin to understand how everything is really coming from vibration. And so Abraham was talking to somebody who said, is there really nothing serious going on here? And they were saying that it's almost the same thing as this movie was saying, that we just haven't begun to understand that what the way to perceive the whole universe is from the point of vibration first, and then everything after that, so it's
one of the reasons we study
difficult
Abraham.
Thing to,
It's one of the reasons we study Abraham, because Abraham is one of the ones that really hammers home the whole nature of vibration, and that all of humans, all things, all thoughts, all events, all of them have a vibrational nature. They all vibrate in some manner that we don't necessarily detect with our scientific instruments. To some extent we can. To some extent we haven't learned how. But they all vibrate. And that vibration is the essence of energy turning into matter.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that vibration, there would be no matter. It wouldn't matter.
Right.
It wouldn't matter.
Good one. So our thoughts are vibration. And he said, William Buhlman said that as he goes deeper on these journeys, he finds that there's realms where the second he thinks, immediately he creates an environment. Like if the slightest thought will take him into an entire environment that he creates in the second he thinks it. And but he said this is sort of like the densest reality. When you come back to this one, this is where you don't immediately always see how your thoughts are creating everything.
Right.
I don't see how my thoughts are creating that chair across the room. I don't see how my thoughts are creating that lamp in the corner of the room. I don't see how my thoughts create this computer that's sitting in front of me. But yet all of this is happening, because of that energy of vibration. The frequency of thought is bringing everything into creation in the entire universe. That's the amazing thing. So it's consciousness, Consciousness is behind everything. And
it's an interesting question too, because when you have all this stuff being created, on the one hand, we can, as humans, can pretty easily identify with the idea that that chair, that computer, that table, that whatever was created by what was previously thought. So that kind of sequence can make sense to us. So
yeah, you can see the sequence.
Right. So anything that is happening in our lives right now is based on something we previously thought, or that others involved in our lives previously thought. If they're involved in some way, even if it's on the level of just having created the computer that we're working with. But the harder concept, and the one that I kind of go around back and forth on, is to what extent does our current thought continue with the creation process of what's already here, and to what extent does it actually contribute to new stuff that's about to arrive, to new experiences and things and events and people and so forth and thoughts? To what extent does it contribute to that? And I certainly have no trouble with the second part, that it's going to contribute to new stuff. I wonder about the first part. I don't know what the answer is here. Is it actually like if I'm thinking about that computer, am I reinforcing the existence of that computer, or would that computer continue to exist without my attention? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, in quantum physics, that was Schrodinger's cat.
That's right. That's
theory,
right.
which I'm not going to try to explain myself, but
I barely understand it.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing, Does the cat exist when we quit?
That's right.
Quit thinking about it, and
or like the old adage, if the tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
Yeah, and Abraham always answers that one. They say no, it does not make a sound, because if there's nothing there, no device to receive the sound waves, then it does not make a sound.
And I agree with that.
Sound is completely an interpreted thing. So
That's
you
right.
look at, all of the senses of our body are all interpretive mechanisms that are interpreting vibrations. That's how we see what we see, and hear what we hear, and feel what we feel, and taste what we taste, and smell what we smell. Everything is coming from our interpretation of vibrations. But those vibrations, what are they? And that's where, when you do this out of body travel or go deep into meditation, you come to see that it's all coming from a source of vibration. And you go deeper and deeper into that realm, and you arrive, like people in near-death experiences, at this amazing white light that seems like it's home. It seems like this is who I truly am. This is where I truly belong. And the degree of love, and the degree of beauty, and the degree of awesomeness of this light is so overwhelming that you completely want to merge with it. It's who you are. And then those people are, they're told they need to go back into their body. And for most of them, they don't want to, they don't want to come back here. And they're told, well, you have some things you need to complete here in this realm. And so it's like everything is really us creating it. I mean, William Buhlman said that when you do this out-of-body travel, you come to the realization that everyone is living in an entire unique universe, where they're creating everything in their own unique way. So every way that I perceive the lamp in the corner, and the computer on my desk, and all of the things going on in my life are unique to me. No one else necessarily experiences it the way I do. Now, we don't know. I don't know to what degree someone else experiences. Obviously, we share all these things together, so we must be experiencing a lot of things in a similar way. But he's saying that each one of us is a unique creator. We're each creating reality. And as we go deeper into these other realms, we start realizing more and more that our thoughts are creating everything. And he said that's the beauty of doing that travel, because you start seeing that, there is nothing to worry about on any level, because it's all in our control. It's all things. We're creating it all. And so, you bring it back to this realm, and you go, well, then I can actually, just by my thinking, make my life whatever I want to make it be. It's just to the degree that I'm able to be in touch with that and somehow intend. He said it's all intentions. Like when he leaves his body, he said often first thing that happens, he's floating at the end of his bed, and he says, and all of a sudden his vision starts to grow really blurry, and he can't quite see things. And he says he immediately goes, clarity now. And the second he says clarity now, everything clears up. And he learned for years and years of doing this that he can say, go through the roof, and he's immediately on the roof of his house. Or he could say fly across the town, and he can fly across town, and he's instantly where he wants to be. But it took him a long time to learn how to play with all these things. And I feel like he says on this level, it's incredibly dense. And so we don't immediately see the results of our thoughts. We don't understand that our thoughts are creating everything, but they are.
Yeah. The thing also that I'm thinking about as you're describing that, you're talking about how much of a joy it is for him to do this. I don't know what he calls it. It sounds
out of body travel.
Yeah. Out of body, or I've heard it called astral projection. I've heard called all kinds of stuff.
He says he's upset with that word, that word came to be use, but he said he has to accept it because now it's the accepted word out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that
it
means
is
anything
called
actually.
that too. Yeah.
But the thing that strikes me about all that is we know that Source and the non-physical beings of Source are focused on us at all times. That's another key Abraham teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's the case, then the question that comes to my mind is, are they hoping that we're all going to do that kind of thing, or is it actually more than that? I have a feeling that while that is a really cool experience, I don't think that's really what the ultimate is. I think the ultimate is living this life and learning how to expand our abilities in this life, because this is where all the attention is. This is where it's all happening. This is the leading edge, right? That's what Abraham calls it, the leading edge of consciousness, the leading edge of existence. This is where all of the contrast is experienced. This is where we experience the contrast and choose which contrast we like and which ones we don't like, and which items of the contrast we like, which ones we don't like, and then thereby hone and shape our journey through life. So as interesting as that is, and I think it is really interesting, in fact, I want to check it out, I don't think that's actually the highest form of living, so to speak. I think the highest form of living is here.
Yeah, it was funny to watch him. He's putting on a class back at the Monroe Institute where he teaches, and when he was talking about it to the audience for an hour and a half, it was the first time I ever went and watched a video of him. I just wanted to check out what he's like because I'm reading his book that he wrote back in the 70s, I think, or 80s or something like that. Maybe maybe it's the 90s, about adventures beyond the body, and it was interesting to see how much he had anger. He had this sort of like really chip on his shoulder about the fact that people don't get it. The people don't get the fact that, that this reality that we experience here is so limited. It's so dense and slow and just people don't get the fact that who we really are as consciousness is such a different, quick, amazing entity, what we are. And he's really angry at science and religion for being so teaching people how things are that keeps so many. I think this is what he's really angry about, how many billions of us are stuck in, we believe in this reality so much, like perhaps the woman you were talking to before the call who was suffering so much in her relationship. And I know I experience it with my own life. I experience it with my clients. How can we get so confused and so stuck and go through so much pain? And William Buhlman was saying that's just really something that is unfortunate because we're so ignorant of who we are. And
I think that's actually where he makes his only mistake. I really believe that's the only time he makes his mistake. That's why he ends up in his place of anger. Because this is something that Joel has taught me really well. There is no such thing as a bad experience that is so bad that it doesn't make you stronger.
Yeah.
And he's
this
working
is a
from the
learning
assumption,
environment for sure.
Yeah, he's working from the assumption that if something bad happens to you, it's weakening you. That's making you less well off, and it's not. It's actually making you stronger. Doesn't mean that we want to stay there. Certainly, if we're in a bad state, we want to get out of that bad state, and we want to get out fast. But that's no reason to get all upset about it to the point of focusing on, how terrible this is. Quite the contrary. Yeah. What we want to be focusing on is what it takes to get out of that, which is focusing on the good stuff, on the stuff that we like, on the stuff that we choose. Instead of focusing on the stuff we don't want, we got to focus on the stuff we do want. He's focusing on the stuff we don't want. Like, well, okay, you're going to get more of it. I hope you enjoy it. Have fun.
Yeah, and I don't really know what all he's really like or anything. I mean, it's funny because at the end of his talk, he says the whole reason we're here is to have fun, and the whole reason this whole thing exists is to have fun. It's just that it took him an hour and 10 minutes to get around to saying that, and I felt like, well, I don't know if you believe that so much because I felt like maybe he struggles a lot, maybe with.
Well, I can't blame him. I mean, it took me the entire weekend. It took me the entire weekend to figure out that a doubt is a form of belief. So who am I to complain about him?
Well, I was so funny. It was so funny because in my deciding the topic of this podcast today, it came about because I was going through some angst myself and just feeling the sort of like an endless treadmill that I'm on with myself. of constant self-improvement and constantly, well, it was sort of like I came to this place saying, well, when do I arrive? When do I just decide that this is enough affirmations, this is enough looking in the mirror, this is enough, like, reading Abraham? It's like there's a point at which you just say, when do I just get to be free and happy? Okay, just with no strings attached. And I know that place. I've experienced that place a lot in my life. And I feel like I've made it more difficult on myself by thinking so much about the nature of the universe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right, right. Yeah, it's like, do you enjoy the journey? It's and that's what it came down to me, like realizing that, well, if I'm complaining about anything, then I'm obviously not enjoying the journey. I woke up this morning and realized I have this little thing that happens almost every morning where I wake up, and one of the first things that happens is something in me wants to say, you have problems. And it was like, what is that? And so I was walking to the bathroom, and it was trying to say something to me about, something must be amiss. And it was like, yeah, I know. I sort of saying to that voice, yeah, I know, I hear you all the time. And I was realizing that it's just this old habit of thinking there needs to be something to complain about or to feel is not right. And I realized that's just, it's like at the end of this beautiful "Nothing Serious Is Going On Here" segment of Abraham that I copied down yesterday. They say, bless that feeling of worry, because it's pointing to a vibrational habit that will serve me well to release. So even the worry is a blessed thing, they were saying. But, because you realize that is something that would serve me well to completely eliminate from my life, is this little voice that says, something's amiss and you should complain about it. Something's not right, and you should look at that thing that's not right. And like you said at the beginning of this podcast, every moment that we spend focusing on the thing that's amiss, the thing that's not right, it builds it. It keeps it alive.
It's rather discouraging in some sense because it makes me realize all the different ways I was helping to focus on what I didn't want, even though I thought I wasn't. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, once I've come to the realization, that's a breakthrough. That's a victory. So what I really need to do is focus on, whoa, good breakthrough, Walt. Way to go.
Yeah. Well, things are always getting better. That's the amazing thing, is that Abraham was saying that recently. I remember they were saying to somebody, you've got to realize that there is no day that's like the previous day. Everything is actually constantly improving, but you've got to be able to see it. You've got to be able to accept that, and then look for, well, what is going right, and how have I grown, and what did I learn from that contrast? And it's not that it's on our shoulders to constantly be analyzing everything, but to be relaxing more into the fact that everything is okay. It always was okay, and it always will be okay. I remember when I learned that back in the 70s, when it was mind-blowing with this teacher I had from India, and this one of his closest devotees at that time was talking with me, and I really trusted this guy because I felt like he did so much meditation that he knew where he was coming from. And he told me that this teacher had told him that everything is okay, it always was okay, and it always will be okay. and that how that had changed his whole life. And from that moment, it changed my life too. I've been saying that ever since then, that whenever push comes to shove, I say everything's okay. It always was, and it always will be. There really isn't anything to get that worried about, and to get worried at all, really. But
that's cool too, because ultimately, what you did when you said that, and what you've continued to say that, is you've recognized that even if you don't see it, because you talked about how important it is to see it, to be able to see the improvement. Even if you don't see the improvement, you can still learn to see it by telling yourself exactly what you told yourself, that everything really is okay. Because if you keep doing that over and over again, anything that you repeat over and over again, that's how you turn it into a belief. So when you start believing it, then all of a sudden you can see it.
Yep.
They say that seeing is believing. Actually, it turns out to be the other way around. Believing is seeing.
Right.
Which is not what we were taught. It's not what we thought. It's not what we believed. We thought that seeing was believing. So all I have to do is see it, and then I'll be able to believe it. No, it's the other way around. You actually can't see it until you believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, I in the early days of listening to Abraham about 4 years ago, I went to a meeting one time here in Boulder, and they were giving out these pieces of paper that were about a foot, 14 inches long or so, and there was a thin strip about 14 inches long by an inch and a half wide, and on it had words printed in reverse, like you could only read it if you put it in a mirror.
Oh, right.
And if you put it on your dashboard of your car, it'll reflect in your window, and it said, "Everything is always working out for me." And everything is always working out for me. And so I put that on the dashboard of my car. I literally kept it there for 3 years.
Wow.
Because it was always so good to, whenever I was going anywhere, because I'm always kind of relaxed when I get in the car to drive somewhere, unless I'm really late or something, or I happen to be uptight. But I'm usually not uptight most of my life, luckily. But I get in the car and I read this thing, and it said, "Everything is always working out for me," over and over again, day after day after day after day after day. Plus, I heard them at the time, they also said 100% of your job as a human being is to be receptive to well-being. So I had another little Post-it that I had on my dashboard that said receptivity to well-being. So between those two things, everything's always working out for me, and receptivity to well-being, which made me remember that 100% of my job here is to simply receive well-being. It was like two things that were saying the same thing. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out. And I agree with you, man. That's just something we're creating. It's not something that is the other way around. It really is us that are the ones that decide that.
And that's a big concept. That is a tough concept to get. It takes time to kind of sit with it and live with it and work with it and play with it to really even begin to grasp it. And even when you start to grasp it, then you still have to work with it some more just to continue to grasp it, because it is big. It is an idea that is so big, particularly when we come from a place of victimhood, of being powerless, of being, subject to the whims of fate and to an angry God and to, parents who are dominating us and teachers who are ordering us about and bosses who are telling us what to do and so forth. To actually come to the state of believing that we create it all is a big, big journey. There's a lot involved in that journey. And I kind of came to the realization that I can't get there all at once, so I'm going to get there one step at a time. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep doing a podcast. I'm going to keep doing a podcast, and in the course of doing that podcast, I'm going to keep learning just how I create, even when I'm not realizing that I'm creating. Now, did it have to be a podcast? No. I could have done it through playing the violin or collecting stamps or feeding animals or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is that I'm doing. What matters is, what am I focusing on? What method, what action am I using to get myself into a place to focus on the thing I really need to focus on, which is I'm creating it all. And it involves First of all, it involves just being willing to accept the idea I'm creating it all, because I have all this, nasty stuff that went on in my life. I don't want to have to be the person who create all that. How can I be responsible for that? Well, actually, I can. Doesn't mean that I have to be to blame for it, but I have to at least start with the idea, yeah, I attracted that. I might not even know how I attracted it, but I did. Okay, so I'll just kind of let that go, because you know what? Hey, stuff happens. And okay, I made mistakes. Guess what? I am not perfect when it comes to doing everything flawlessly. Sometimes I miss up. Sometimes I just don't focus on what I want to focus on. I end up getting distracted over something I don't want to focus on. Okay, well, I'm willing to let that go. And look at the good stuff that has come out of all those things that I focused on that I didn't want to focus on. Because as it turned out, I became a stronger being. I ended up becoming a better person. Despite the fact that I made all those so-called mistakes, I became a better person out of them. I became a stronger person. I became better able at focusing on what I want. And in that way, learning how to be the deliberate creator that I want to be, which is the one that I'm creating what I want and not being victim to what I don't want. So it's actually, even all those mistakes are just making me stronger. They're just making me better at being a deliberate creator.
Yeah. Well, you gotta give yourself credit. I mean, we always have to give ourselves credit for the life we're creating and the fact that we're on a journey, and that it does have, there is an amazing beauty to the whole thing. But my thing over this weekend was to come into the appreciation of just how beautiful it is. And that's why I love that documentary so much, because every scene was so beautiful, and they were going into every religion in the world, and they were going back into the indigenous history of human beings, and they were just looking at all the beautiful signs that humans have evolved through all the centuries of their knowing that we're connected to this amazing infinite beauty, that there is something about this entire play here that unfolding that is so incredible and beautiful. And of course you can see it every day, and just looking at the tree in your front yard, and just like you say, that it's entirely a fractal, the same pattern that's our entire nervous system grows just like a tree. I mean, everything is connected in these amazing ways, and it's all so beautiful. And when we get to this place where we are able to relax into the beauty of it all, that's when we start to see that perfection and feel how good it is to be right where we are. Like you say, to be here in this particular place, I think that's just the appreciation that we would love to arrive at as human beings, is just to be able to sit back and be so grateful and so in appreciation for how beautiful everything is on this planet, the way that it all works. We love the sky, we love the clouds, we love the rocks, we love the trees, we love the animals. There's so much to appreciate.
There is. Now, remind me again. I know you told us at the beginning, but what's the name of this video, this movie that you saw?
It's I believe it's called Inside Worlds, Outside Worlds. Yeah, Inside Worlds, Outside Worlds.
Okay, because I'm going to look that one up, and certainly it sounds like it's worth watching for sure.
Well, I watched it on Gaia Television, where you can watch. I mean, I have a $10 a month subscription to Gaia TV. GAIA, I think is how you, and they have just endless amount of documentaries that'll blow your mind. I mean, they're so great. So many good ones, which are really, help me to have a bigger and bigger appreciation every time I watch one of how magnificently orchestrated the universe is, and how much our lives are unfolding in such incredible ways. And it's good to have that level of appreciation for me, because then I can relax and know that I am on a good journey. I have to go to these other worlds. I don't have to go on astral projection every night in order to give my life meaning.
Right.
Although I wouldn't mind, but even meditation, Abraham says over and over again, they make it clear that meditation is fundamentally important to who we are. And there's a reason why it's so important to go into those realms where we feel that vibration. We have to feel it. We can't just think our way there. I wanted to read something that they said. They said this. So here you are in this perfect environment, and now open to source energy, open to your impulses because you have tended to your mood. And now in this moment of blending, this moment of power, all of your power is here and now in this moment. And your power is about your mood. Your power is about your vibrational frequency. Your power is about your alignment with who you are about your trajectory. Your power is about understanding of your value. At any point in your evolution, you just have to decide, I want to feel good. I want to be free. There isn't anything serious going on here, and yet everything is going on here. And there isn't anything serious in the sense that nothing is going wrong. The worst thing that happens from your point of view is that you make your transition into the non-physical. And from those who make their transition from their point of view, it's the best thing that ever happened. So, I don't know. It's just sort of trying to arrive at this place of going, everything's okay. It's always was, it always will be. I can relax. I can trust. I can let my life be a beautiful unfolding.
I was motivated to look up the word serious, to look at the actual definition of it while you were talking there. Mm-hmm. And I smiled when I saw they give two definitions for it. And I smiled particularly when I read the second one. The first one, mm-hmm. The first definition is demanding careful consideration or application. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we spend a lot of time giving life considerable consideration and application. Yeah, but the second definition, the second. Wait till you hear the second definition. The second definition is acting or speaking sincerely and in earnest, rather than in a joking or half-hearted manner. And I think it's fascinating because we do so much laughing here on the show, but we don't do it half-heartedly. We do it with full heart.
Yeah.
And that's the part that caught my attention, because we say that it's serious, and we say that to not look at it is half-hearted, but in fact, it is the seriousness that is half-hearted. You know what I mean? When we get overly serious, let's put it that way, or perhaps negatively focused serious, what really is happening is we're giving half-hearted attention to the joy of living, to the joy of feeling good. Right on. So when we're in this serious state, we can be serious in a positive way. We can be serious in a negative way. Really, when you look at it, to be serious in a positive way is to not take it so dramatically, and to turn it into something that's fun. But to take it seriously in a negative way is to turn it all into dramatic. Oh my God, dramatic and traumatic. Oh, that's the kind of serious that you're talking about, the kind that we want to stay away from.
Yeah, the main thing that I do with clients, in a certain sense, is talk people to the edge. I mean, a lot of people who have contact me when they're really feeling really upset about something.
Sure.
And so the sessions become helping them to relax, helping them to, it's sort of soothing. Abraham said, the essence of coaching and the essence of talking to another person and to ourselves is soothing. We're trying to soothe ourselves into accepting the fact that everything's okay. It's almost like what everything comes down to is accepting the fact that, that's why this thing, I'm an infinite being. Does an infinite being really need to be so upset and worried about the outcome of things? Like they said, nothing is going wrong, and you can't get it wrong here, and you have infinity to get it right. So relax. You're gonna get everything. Everything's gonna work out. And the more we just relax and start, we go into meditation, we feel really good inside. The more we do that, we start realizing I could just maybe chill a whole lot more and things would still be fine. Things would still work out. I'd still have the money I need, and I'd still have the friends I need, and maybe things would even get better if I was even more relaxed, if I was even more happy, if I looked for what is fun for me. How do I have more fun? It's just the neurons that fire together wire together, and I want to wire more together that have the journey of pleasure and fun than the journey of struggle and strife.
Absolutely, yeah. It reminds me of that that Indian movie, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. I think I told you.
Yeah,
I think it was you.
saw that.
Oh, you saw that. Okay. I can't remember who I was saying this to last week. I thought it was you, but maybe it was Wendy or one of the
No,
others.
not me.
But they have the saying in there, and the saying is, everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not yet all right, then it's not yet the end. It's a way of reminding us, ride out the journey. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, there's no need to get all worked up about, how terrible things are. No need to go there at all. You just enjoy the journey. Not just be in the journey, enjoy it. Have fun. See if you can find all the fun stuff that's in that journey. Because it actually is there. And it's up to us to find it. Once we find it, the journey gets easier. Isn't that ironic? Yeah. Once we find the fun stuff, the journey gets easier.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
So good stuff. I do want to take a moment because we haven't actually done any of our commercial messages during the program, and we usually don't like to do that. Of course, you and I, Tom, are doing a Tuesday night podcast now. One night a week, just once, the only one. Tuesday nights, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are doing that particular time slot because we realize that there are people who just can't make a phone call to a podcast during the day. I mean, we have the 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. We have the 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time slots, Monday through Friday. But those are not necessarily good times for people to make calls. And we want to hear from people. We want to have listeners call in. This isn't just the Tom and Walt show. It isn't the Cindy and Walt show or Wendy or David or Joel. It's also the listener show. We want everybody to be a part of this. Because while we've studied it a lot, we're not the final experts on everything. And every new perspective, every new viewpoint just adds to the conversation. So if you've had a kind of an urge at some point to I'd like to call in and just talk about some stuff sometime, give us a call Tuesday night, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Not 9 a.m. Don't try calling at 9 a.m. That won't work. Make sure it's 9 p.m. on Tuesday. But just go to the website, loatoday.net, and you'll see where the podcast player is live. That's where you can find the live player. And there's also the instructions for how to connect to us using the Zoom platform. It's a conferencing platform that we use to connect in and also connect that to our broadcast system through Spreaker. But all that happens in the background. All you got to do is follow the instructions, and it'll kind of walk you through it. Also, reminding people, on that same page, you'll find all the information both to subscribe to the podcast if you have not yet already done that, and it gives you information on how to share, which actually everybody knows how to do now through social media. But the icons are all there. You got your Facebook and your LinkedIn and your Twitter and your every single possible social media icon you can think of, and a few you've never heard of are there. So there's no more excuses. You can now share after you subscribe. So subscribe and share. And just want to make sure everybody knows to do that.
Okay.
Also, I also want to remind people too, we've got this book coming out, and the book is a collection of manifestation stories. In other words, these are stories from our lives and from the lives of all the people who are co-authoring this book. There are almost 40 people co-authoring this. Most of them are life coaches. A few of them are people like me who have studied it and played with it extensively, but most of them are life coaches. And Tom, I got to tell you, these stories are really, really good stories. I'm still in the process of editing them. I've got it about 45% done. I'm hoping to get the rest of the first round of editing, which is the hardest round, done before the end of this month. That's been my goal. And to actually get the second round done shortly after that, because once you get the first round done, that's the hard part. The second round is really easy. And
I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be really good. Plus, the reason I'm mentioning that is listeners of the podcast are going to be given away to get a free copy of the ebook version. There's going to be both an ebook and a paperback. And listeners are going to be able to find a way to get a free copy of the ebook. But the only way to do that is to listen. So you have to subscribe, right? That's how you'll be sure that you stay up and keep up and find out how to get that ebook. So that's it. That's the end of the commercial messages. Well, actually, there's one more. We need one from you, Tom. Somebody wants to get in touch with you. How do they get in touch with you?
Go to my website, which is called youarejoy, youarejoy.com. And you can sign up for a free coaching session with me there. And then after that, you can decide if you want to do more with me or not. But it's just a chance to have a free coaching session.
All right. So enjoy the journey, Tom. It's been great. Looking forward to talking to you Tuesday night.
Yeah, me too, Walt. Thanks a lot.
All right. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.